Welcome to the Scene Weekly podcast, where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies of the same theme to up the big blind, bluff your way into a movie podcast, and raise when you've got nothing but a 2 and a 7. I don't know what I just said. This week's episode is focused on poker movies, with Rounders taking on Casino Royale. Come join Jonathan and Steven for another week of hopefully less plot chatter and more film banter. We are Scene Weekly. And welcome to our world, Steven. How you been?
Yeah, welcome, man. Welcome. I got three stacks of high society ready to go for this podcast.
I don't know what that means either. I think that's
you're a noob to this whole poker lingo and things like that. You don't know what a 7-2 offsuit means?
No, I know what it is. Isn't it like the worst hand in poker?
That's when you fold. Or, you don't even try and play that.
Or even a 7-3. Isn't that also terrible?
Yeah, but 7-2 is minimally worse.
What is your experience with poker?
Big fan? Yeah, definitely a big fan. In my college years, like the poker boom of 2004, 2005, up through I think 2010, kind of like it was on ESPN, not ESPN2 or anything like that. It was like on the main channel. Watching the World Series of Poker, I would actually go around. I remember in college with my buddy Kevin Matthews, and we'd go to these. You know how like places have like trivia night and whatnot. Well, restaurants used to have poker night, and they would set up these rooms, like the slow Tuesdays of the week or something like that, and they'd do poker night. And you could come in and for a chance to win like a $50 gift card or something like that.
I see the distinction.
Me and Kevin were the rounders of the Atlanta poker scene, and we were like Worm and Matt Damon, just kind of calling signs to each other, telling each other when to fold. Like we were kind of in it just to get that $50 gift card.
For $50, how long would that take you to actually get the $50 gift card? So you're basically working minimum wage.
That's usually a couple of hours, and you're spending money on beer and chicken wings and things like that. So it's not really a plus. So you're kind of already in the negative.
You're there for the competition.
There for the competition, man. Yeah, and poker was fun. I wasn't the best at it, but I knew which cards to play. I knew when to bluff.
Do you have a sign, a tell?
Yeah, my hands start shaking when I have good cards.
Do they really?
Yeah, they did. Early on, like when I was beginning to play poker, I was a total noob, and I just like I'd get a good card and I'd like ante up and I'd be shaking my hands like, oh yeah, that's a tell. He has good cards.
Fold
right now.
It turns out he just has Parkinson's, guys. He won it all. World Series of Poker.
Yeah, it was a make-a-wish for me. What about you? What about you, man? How are you on the poker scene?
I haven't played enough to even objectively analyze that question. So, how many times have I played? Maybe 3 times total ever in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. Never ever got into it. And anytime I've actually, this is going to be clear as day, as you know me well. I think the people, the watchers of the podcast probably know me by now. I just can't stand sitting there for that long. It's a lengthy game, and I get very impatient. And I get impatient because like I don't see the merits of the competition, and I know that a lot of people do. I just don't give a fuck about. Maybe I would get into it if it was like you have the potential to win 120,000 with like a lottery ticket. You're buying in at like $10. Then I'll be like, dude, we're gonna throw down now. But it's like your friend's money, bragging rights until the next week, and I think that's really what it is. Camaraderie. You're shooting the shit. I would just rather do something else other than sit there and play this game.
And take somebody else's
getting
money.
Together. I'd rather get together and play Rummy Cube.
Oh, there you go again with Rummy Cube.
So I don't know. I don't know what it is. Never really liked it. Still
Not many
don't like it.
movies. Not many movies or plots driven by Rummy Q, and I'd like to see one.
I'm sure there's a porn on it.
Of course, there is. Um, but yeah,
But yeah,
man,
we got
poker.
Casino Royale and Rounders. You know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
we've got
it's a funny
18
combination.
minutes of discussion points to talk between the two movies, primarily entirely on Rounders, and then 1 minute of Bond running around, saving people and killing people and banging chicks, and then I'm sure we'll be done quickly.
I mean, I like the idea of poker in movies or just like any kind of high stakes gambling. I mean, you've been to casinos, right? You have what's the most you've ever won?
It makes for very good film.
Yeah.
The most I've ever won, I cannot say on this podcast.
Oh,
Um, it
okay.
would it would be detrimental, I think.
Got it.
But
Okay.
it's a hefty number. But it was on a slot machine.
Oh, so no cards involved.
There were no cards involved, no.
Pure
But it was
luck, pure chance. I love that. I think you
in
saw.
blackjack. The most I've ever won, I think I'm probably up like 12 grand in blackjack in total.
That's pretty good.
It's
That's really good, actually.
not great. I don't even think that's good. I mean, it's not a negative.
I think most people are in the negative. So being up that,
I know when to get out. I know when to leave.
yeah, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, man. That's
Basically,
what
you
it's all
just
about.
if you just learn the book and how to play, and then play doubling down each time you lose, so like the Martin Dog technique. And then you also kind of have to caveat that to some extent because you're not doubling down on sometimes on 11s if you've already like lost 3 hands, for example. If you just play like that and you have a bankroll of like $500, if you're paying, I think that the math is 445 bankroll for $5 hands. Um, you could play up to 6 hands and lose, and then your seventh you're out. But like the numbers, if you actually do the numbers, it's like 90. I can't remember. It's 95 to 98% basically that you're going to win that following hand. So I'm sure thousands, millions, and trillions of people have come up with the same ideology or methodology. But that was what I came up with after watching a friend my bachelor party. I don't think he would like to have a discussion about him, but I would love to talk freely. But for his also his anonymous side, he won about 700,000 at my bachelor party playing blackjack. So I've seen the process, and then I replicated it on a very low level scale. And you saw that live as well, being at
Yeah,
the
it
bachelor
feels like a
party, which
dream,
was
man. It
was
feels like a dream.
and we have to talk about it, I guess. I mean, it's not poker per se, but I remember the first night of the bachelor party, which is always the hardest to like get through, meaning like to recover from, because you just go ham. And we were playing small tables, and we're all playing as well, like collectively, and clearly he's just ticking up, and I think his total at was like 32,000 after night one, and we were losing our shit because that to me was like that was the best night because that was when we started to get free stuff, just smoking cigarettes, and we don't even smoke cigarettes. Just starting to get like these like here's your comped at the noodle bar, like which is hilarious because in Rounders, it's like oh, I got comped at the noodle bar. It's like oh we did too.
You
I don't know
did
if you
too,
remember
yeah.
that. Yeah, it's like it's really happens, and then we start getting comped in these like cheap meals, and then the next night it was like 100,000 plus, and we're
It's
like
the
sitting
red
in the back
carpet treatment.
sitting in the back room, all of us just watching him, like commandeering a table with the high rollers, and everything's comped again. But it was weird. It was the first night that actually shocked me. The second and every other night after that, it was just like, yeah, 50,000 on the line, no big deal. Like it wasn't affecting me. But the first night, I was like, oh my god, he just won 5 grand. What? This is, and we'd always compare it to something. We like that's like a third of a Nissan Maxima. Like, what is happening? This is crazy. And then I think he was up 600 the second to last night or third to last night. Lost it all, almost like 130, and then back up to I think 660 was the number at the end all be
That's
all.
wild, man.
Had the table of the owner for One Oak. Walked in there. I
Bottle
hate clubs.
service.
I hate clubs,
Yeah.
and I was high off my tits. having to take care of the guy who just won all this money. But yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, it
Interesting
was a
time
good
to say
time,
the
man.
least.
I thought my my casino high came in a small club in or casino in Montreal when I bet on some mechanical horses. That was my high.
I'm gonna have to say this. That was better. No fucking lie, that was better. Do you know why?
Why is that?
I'll frame this. So first of all, I wrote a book about this. Shoulder to the Wheel. Shout out my former name, John Seaton, and which stars the two of us, and in addition to two other individuals, on a road trip going from Georgia to Canada for Canada Day, and our friends up in the north part of us. And so we were destitute, not destitute enough to not afford a car, but we drove in a week's time 3,333 miles. I have a picture of it somewhere. But with that said, we, for whatever it's worth, were the geeks and dorks in your like early to mid 20s that basically we couldn't afford anything but the gas. Didn't stop anywhere. Basically, we're just pissing in cups all throughout the car. And go to this Montreal casino, and it might have been my first casino I've ever been to, like properly to actually gamble. I think it was. It had to have been because I can't remember a single casino before then. Um, and so all of us collectively, we probably had, I don't know, in terms of cash, maybe $20, like something outrageously low. And
Like worrying about gas money to get home, basically.
yeah, and going into credit card debt basically. And we go into this insanely nice Montreal casino that's on the water, I believe. Taking pictures next to, I think, that Lamborghini or Ferrari. Have no
Yeah.
idea what. Have the pictures of that as well. That's how uncool we were. Just like, oh my god, look at this. Walking in, price stint, like the stench is high. And didn't we order? Because I think it was my idea to order tequila sunrises or something like that. I was like,
I think so.
Hunter S. Thompson right now would order a tequila sunrise, I think. Anyway, so I'll leave it to you to tell the story. That moment of that actually happening was more significant. So go on, and I've teed it up to some extent, but tell what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely my first time in a casino. I was 19, and Canada allows younger people to partake in things like drinking and gambling and things like that you couldn't do south of the border. So yeah, we went into this casino. Never played blackjack, had an idea of poker. Slot machines were there, but I saw this mechanical horse racing thing. It was like in the middle right there, and I was like, "This looks fun." Right? And I think I take out a couple of dollars, right? And everybody else is kind of betting like one quarter on it and stuff like that. And I bet like, I don't know, was it $2, $5, something like that?
No, yeah, I know the odds. I think you won like, I don't know. I keep going.
Right. So what I do is you kind of see the odds of each race for the horse, for these mechanical horses. And you can pick first place, you can pick second place, or you can pick who's going to get first and who's going to get last. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And I basically switched it around or something like that. And I picked the worst odds that you could possibly imagine for this horse race. And I had to
Yeah.
pick two horses on it. And lo and behold, like it's the anticipation of watching these mechanical horses go around a track. And, it's the weirdest thing. And seeing the bet that I did come to fruition was ecstasy. It was like one of
It
the best
was
feelings I've ever had.
it was outrageous. I want to say you put like 50 cents or 75 cents. It was something like so insignificantly low because we couldn't afford to actually lose. And then you come out with 100. It was like 185, $186, something like that.
It was over 200 Canadian. So yeah, it was like like $190 or something like
Dude.
that cash.
And I remember being like, what did you get? And then we're trying to calculate it, and we're like, wait, what's the translation on the currency exchange? Like, we're like, oh my god, it's basically the same. Like, oh my god, this is $200. Oh my god. And then I think we went like McDonald's or something afterwards, or got beaver tails. But like that excitement and exhilaration getting back into the minivan soon after that which was our method of transport, was, I mean, we're still talking about it after 20
I
plus
remember
years.
you were the one that told me to walk away. Like you knew when to fold
Yeah.
them. You're like,
Well,
let's walk away.
you went from quarters, like a handful of quarters to $200. Like this is our time to exit. You just
Yeah.
got as lucky as we're going to get here. The rest of it's just going to go downhill, but that was very exciting. And then we eventually jumped into a river afterwards. Wait, did you jump in the river?
I
I
didn't
don't
jump
believe
in the
you
river.
did.
That was it stayed dry. Fun
What a
times,
weird,
man.
what a weird time. But anyway, my experience is mostly on the blackjack side. We did have a casino night for my company recently, which is an interesting concept because they had the opportunity from the time that you if you lost all your money, you got to go into the front of the entire company. Everyone looks at you and you have to do the chicken dance and then you get to buy back in. And I was like, that seems like the worst idea ever because you're basically outing all the degenerate gamblers or
Yeah.
degenerate people. So this one chick, she did the chicken dance like 3 times, no shame. And I was like, I think you should have some nunchi, like some wherewithal to understand what you're doing right now at a company event. No
Yeah.
cares. Yeah, no
Okay.
cares.
How many
Just
times did
lost
you
it
do the
all.
chicken dance?
Zero. So I was I think I started with 1,000, ended with like 8 or 9. The fake money. So like yeah, you don't really care. And then I gave that 8 or 9 to our one of the managers at the firm because we were trying to collect money to win for her, and we still didn't win. So, but the problem with the casino night is like once I was playing with like a real dealer. And then I realized I was like looking at this other guy, and I was like, I need to be on that table because since it's fake money, he just doesn't give a fuck. And so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go deep. And he's like, you just burn cards, playing blackjack, and if you're like, oh no, oh blackjack, look at
There
that,
you
I'm like,
go.
awesome. So
It's all
the
Monopoly
one
money,
to 8 or 9.
man.
Anyway, we've got movies to talk about,
Yeah. Yeah.
so why don't we talk about them?
We got Rounders and Casino Royale. This is our first James Bond movie that we get to discuss. Didn't think it would come on a poker themed podcast, but here we are.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't particularly like probably most of the other movies. And also, you nixed, you're like, no, this doesn't count. No, this doesn't count. No, this doesn't count. Well, if it has poker inside of it, I think it's a poker related movie. It doesn't have to
Fair
be
enough. I
entirely
was thinking
focused on.
Molly's Game, but Casino Royale is definitely a
Oh
poker
yeah,
centric film for
yeah,
sure.
for sure. But who wants to go first? Rounders. I mean, Rounders would be more of the, in my opinion, the one that should go first. It's more of
Okay,
the
I think so too.
substantive one.
Rounders, man, it's a film 1998, directed by John Dahl. I was looking up his filmography, and I've only seen one other film by him, and that's Joyride.
I've
Remember
seen
Joyride?
Joyride. Yeah, is that Candy Cane?
It is
Is that
Candy Cane.
yeah?
Paul Walker. But yeah, this is like I think his best film. He doesn't really have too many good ones, but no
I don't know why that's
no
funny.
slight to Joyride. But yeah, Matt Damon, Edward Norton, and John Malkovich. Couldn't even recognize John Malkovich with that accent. Uh, but yeah, it's Rotten Tomatoes 64%, 121 minutes. You have a budget of 12 million, modest box office of 22.9. Comes with the tagline: "Trust everyone, but always cut the cards."
Oh my god,
I don't really get
I
that
don't
one.
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to cut the cards. Like that's part of shuffling. But anyways, uh, the plot goes as such: Mike McDermott, a talented poker player and law student, quits gambling after losing everything to mobster Teddy KGB. When his reckless friend Worm gets out of prison with huge debts, Mike returns to underground poker to help him. Torn between his girlfriend Jo, who wants him to stay straight, and his love for the game, Mike ultimately chooses poker, leaving for Vegas to chase his dream. And yeah, this is a fun film to just rewatch. Like I love the kind of neo noir of it, with the smoky streets and the you know back rooms where they're playing poker, and I mean the narration of Matt Damon throughout. I mean
Yeah,
that's a film noir
it's
homage, I guess.
the narration without it. Um, it's a completely different movie, I think, and I really enjoyed and it reminded me of like Good Will Hunting and just the speeches that Damon provides, and I kind of miss that about him. And I'm not saying that it should be in every movie of his, but like I kind of like he's very powerfully driven by script, but also brings it to life like no other person. Or maybe just I mean Edward Norton has some pretty good American History X, but like his lines, some of Good Will Hunting are impeccable, and in this as well. Like he just goes off kind of like in his own mind, and I love it.
I like it
And
too, and I like how the writing of this movie, they didn't really try and dumb anything down. They used the inside baseball terms of like what people would be, how they would talk in poker and back rooms and things like that, and using famous names like Phil Hellmuth and Johnny Chan, and if you don't know poker, and I'm not saying I'm any kind of expert, far from it, but I do have like a small understanding of some of the greats of the game, Danny Boyle and all those guys that Chris Moneymaker, who won the World Series of Poker, and I understand the terms, and it makes this movie so much more rich to be a poker movie because it has all of that.
I know, man, and especially Boyle. I really appreciate his Train Spotting movie.
Did I
Did
say
really
Danny
well.
Boyle?
He's,
Whatever his name
he's
is. See,
he
I have no clue.
did did great with that. What's the biggest hand you've ever lost in poker?
Um, you always like what they said in the movie is like you never remember the ones you win, you remember the ones you lose. And the worst hand that kicked me out, I remember, was at the Q4 house. We did a poker night. I don't think you played because you weren't really into poker.
Still not.
uh, but I had a full house, and I went
Oh,
all
what?
in. Yeah, full house of, I think it was like jacks over aces. No, aces over jacks or something like that. I don't know. But the person that beat me had four of a kind, and it was bad.
What? Who was it?
I don't remember, man. I can't, no clue. Could have been JP. I don't know.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that's the worst hand that I remember losing because I was doing well in the tournament. I was making some bucks, and then that just wiped me out.
What did you do
Never
afterwards? Take
never
shots of
forget it.
SoCo?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. That's
I'll have to say this though about the movie itself. I was elated. At what scene was I just losing my shit?
oh gosh, maybe the now I have to think.
This should instantaneously come to mind. Like what scene? Where were they? And it was just like, oh my god, I've been there like 100 times.
Oh, the Turkish baths.
No, but close. McSorley's.
Wait, they were at McSorley's?
What?
I
What are you
missed that.
talking about? How
I
did you
totally
miss
missed it.
McSorley's? Oh my dear God! You got to go watch
Now
the
I got to
movie
rewatch
again.
this movie. Yeah. Yeah.
So they
When
actually,
was this?
so it's really funny. He's meeting up with her for the first time in a bit, and they're at McSorley's and having a conversation at the bar. And when they walked in, like the double doors, I was like, oh, they're at McSorley's, and I was like, are they at McSorley's? I don't know. And then because it's like kind of like blurry in the background, I was like, oh yeah, 100% that's McSorley's. As they walk out, it literally says like McSorley's in gold, and it's. I thought for sure
I missed
you would have
that.
picked
I
up on
mean,
that.
could
Wow,
you kind of dive in why that was so important to you? And I mean, even to me, and I fucking missed it.
I can't I can't believe you missed it. I can't believe it.
It's it's my
It's
favorite bar in the world. I mean, bar
it's my
none.
favorite. Yeah, as well as mine. I mean, I've been to O'Donoghue's in Dublin, which was my favorite up until the point that I got walked into McSorley's, and I was like, this is the greatest place on earth. Um, I mean, we've been a lot. We've attempted to do the waterfalls up to I think like 8 or 9, basically where you put one glass over the next and you drink all of them in consecutive fashion. Some of that ends up being on the table in front of you. But in addition, just the camaraderie that you actually build at the table that you typically are sharing with somebody else, possibly a local, possibly not, possibly somebody who's just traveling there because they saw it in the movie Rounders, not you.
Maybe not me.
And you can basically provide yourself with some sustenance. You have crackers, which
Some
is
spicy mustard.
paired with the spiciest of fucking mustard with onions and generic cheese. And for whatever it's worth, goes really, really well with the two beers they serve there and nothing else, is the light or the dark. I don't know which one I actually like more. Still don't. I try it all the time. I think I probably like the dark more, but I love both. And if you order one, you get two. And that's just the weirdest, coolest thing ever. And I like the fact that, like, 20 years ago when I first went, you'd order one and get two, and there wasn't a discussion of like you're going to get two. And now it's like I feel like they've had the discussion with everyone so much and so often that they're like, you're going to get two, and I was like, yeah, I know I'm going to get two. You don't have to say that. Like, don't break
Just
that.
fucking bring it. Yeah.
Just bring the two. Yeah, yeah. Like, just be yourself. But anyway, it's the greatest pub on earth. Shout out McSorley's. I mean, my favorite by far. And anytime you're in New York, we always go.
We do.
We
Yeah.
went before. I got married. Well, actually, you guys went. I think I was out of that one, but we did go.
You were still out of
trip.
commission. Yeah.
But nonetheless, big fan, and I cannot believe I thought that was going to be a shoe-in of like excitement. But nonetheless, best bar in the world.
This movie just raised a tick in the glasses rating just because it has McSorley's in it. So there you go.
But could you take a nice person's money? You think?
Yeah, I could. I mean, if the rules are in place and you're playing a game and you've agreed to the lay of the land, yeah, absolutely. Because they're going to take mine if I lose. So it's either or, And I wouldn't do it like Worm does it and deal from the bottom of the deck. Like that's kind of shitty. But yeah, I'd definitely take somebody's money, and I have.
Yeah, as you should. It's the same thing of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If somebody has the opportunity in a game to choke you out, well, it's either you or them. So it better be you. You better be the one choking out somebody. So
have you ever taken somebody's like money and felt bad about it and been like, hey man, like here you go. Here's
no, because I've always lost in poker. I was just like, I'm 26 minutes in, I'm like, this sucks. We're not even talking about anything but poker. Like, we're not conversing. No intellectual conversations. There's nothing happening. Like, I'm not growing. And I was just like, this sucks. This is so stupid. I hope I offend all of you people that watched poker in the early 2000s. Even in the early 2000s, I was never that. Maybe I was just a big dork. I was, and not in a good way, not in a smart way. I was just a stupid idiot. That just didn't like poker even watching it. I was like, I don't understand what maybe like those last moments of like the turn. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. River, I don't know. Whatever. Creek, the path to the turn.
Something like that. You're close.
Just so dumb. That I just never enjoyed it. So I know I've never taken, I don't think, anyone's money. I've taken the house's money frequently, but
yeah, I even tried like in the early 2000s to play online poker, and you'd have to like go through some different loopholes to put money in certain, because you're like the Bank of America wouldn't allow it and whatnot. But I got on there finally, and I realized I was really, really bad at it because you can't touch any of the chips. You can just click of a button and put all in, or what. It just doesn't feel real. And so like I'd start with $300-400, and like you say 26 minutes, I was like 10 minutes and it was like gone, and I'm like, I can't do this. You can't read anybody's eyes, you can't read anybody's emotions. Like
true.
And I'm good at that.
It's purely on like numbers then. So I actually have he's not even a friend. I have a friend, a friend's friend basically, and he was fairly good at poker, and this was like during the craze, and I think this might have been like 2003, 4, something like that. And he got it into like the online poker, and he was actually pretty good, or like better than average, I would say. And so when everyone thought they were good, like you, this dude comes around and knows actually how to play poker like properly and knows
Knows
like
the
he's
odds.
better than average, and he made over $100,000 that year, just like mopping it in. But he would have 7 tabs open basically, and just be playing 7 tables at once, and just was raking it in. But all he did 14 hours a day was just like play poker all day every day. Did pretty well for himself until people, I think it was like the next year or the two after, like they got much better and he just became kind of
Average. Yeah.
barely making any money because people got addicted. But nonetheless, big fan. All the Turkish baths, what a scene, what a speech as well. I mean, any bathhouse speech I'll demand to see over again. So I watched it a few times, but terrific speech when he's Matt's asking for money, um, and not going to get it, and just
Not going to get it. Yeah.
what a terrific realization of, all right, well, I'm gonna have to do this on my own, or at least attempt to. I think great speech though.
Yeah. You don't want to mess with KGB. Um, it's funny. It's like his nickname's KGB. Like, what if there was a movie in Russia and like I get his nickname is FBI. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so silly.
Would you help
Uh,
somebody for $15,000 though, like that has a gambling issue, and to get it back they're just gonna go and gamble, and they're like, I need 15 grand.
I mean, if it was like a
What do
guy
you
like
do?
Worm, if it's a guy like Worm, no, absolutely not. I'd have to say you got to figure it out, or I'll write a good eulogy for you. Um, but for a guy like Mike, Matt Damon's character, I mean, he can scratch it back. I feel like, and that's what you get for watching this film and rooting for him. But yeah, like there's certain people that I would open up my bank account and lend out 15 grand. Yeah, for sure.
No, I mean in the sense of like going for Worm. Like, dude's just gonna do whatever he does.
Yeah, Worm is he's like the biggest weasel and I could think of any film, really. Like
He
he's
can't help
such a
himself.
weasel.
He can't help himself either. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Because
it's
at first
just
you're like, good character, fun, taking the cigarettes, doesn't even smoke, and then he gives them back, and you're like, ooh, good graces kind of thing. And then it just goes south from there. The second he gets back into the real world, the blue sky opportunities are just endless. And the fact that, like, man, if I just could, the luck just went I was getting there. I had him on the ropes. We all know people like that always think that their luck is going to be turning. But the fact is, it requires a little bit of hard work and some dedication to not being a complete fuck up. And Worm, I think, is probably going to be back in jail soon, if not already dead, prior to that actually happening. But good character, played well by Mr. Edward Norton. And I another person I actually do miss from the time period is him in, man, that going from Primal Fear, which I think is the first, I think maybe you said on this podcast, the first person in their debut to be nominated for an Oscar, if memory serves. But like going from Primal Fear in the 90s to this, what a run he had.
American
And Fight
History X.
Club and American History X and Fight Club. My God. Like, what a, like Edward Norton in the 90s, you have to put him in the top 5 of for actors in the 90s. Have to.
Yeah, I mean, even like Matt Damon coming in with Good Will Hunting the same year, and then The Talented Mr. Ripley, uh,
Oh,
just
can I tell you,
fantastic.
The Talented Mr. Ripley to me is one of the finest films of all time. I have it on DVD. I adore it. I like, it's one of those, like, if we were to say like underrated movie like podcast, like that may well be my pick. Like, I fucking love that movie.
It's it's a like it's a gem of a movie. It's perfect in every way. The performances, the casting, the overall feel of it is just
Yeah.
like a fucking beautiful vacation with some tense, weird things that go on. I mean, we could talk about that on another podcast, and we will, I'm sure. But yeah, Matt Damon, man, he had a great run. He's still having a great run here. I mean, what am I talking about? But
He's still having a great run, but I think it's in the lines of like Bob Dylan actually quoted himself. Quoted himself. He said this, that when being questioned on basically, can you produce what you did 40, 50 years ago now. And he's like, no, like I don't have that same. He was like, it's not even like worth trying type of thing. Like just taking the time because he still does it. And he was just like, basically lightning in a bottle. There's the movement, the feeling of that movement, the camaraderie, like William S. Burroughs and Hunter S. Thompson, Jack Kerouac, they're all like hanging out in, um, the Upper West Side, also throughout New York City, I should say, and just the artistry, the like poetry with the times, of war and otherwise, and the affluence of music and how it's like seeping into everything. He can't really replicate. He doesn't think he can replicate that. I just think that for the both of these characters, Edward Norton and Matt Damon, I don't think that they're gonna replicate this effort again in this like decade that they had. Because how could you really? Because it's one of the finest performances in those 10 years. But nonetheless, I'm
It's
getting
great,
well
and
off topic.
it's funny that you bring up Bob Dylan in this instance because Edward Norton just got nominated for Best Supporting Actor in the Bob Dylan: A Complete Unknown film. So he's still juicing, but it's not the same juice.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I didn't know that, but it's. I've actually met him. He
I
probably
have
doesn't
too.
remember. He probably doesn't remember me. Yeah, you meet a lot of people through your work, but I was at my work and I was just doing some stupid, mundane task, and the not to get into too far detail so people know my extreme history here. There was a place I worked at, and the wife of the CEO basically had like a production company and met with a lot of high powered actors, and he just strolled in. We had cashmere for carpet, by the way, which is like supposed to be on walls, but we put it on the ground, and like you would kick it up and it would always stay on your feet. Weird, very soft, very weird. I just remember him coming up the stairs, and then I look over to my left because I was like kind of nearest the stairs, and I was like, "This is Edward Norton. This is odd." He's just talking like a normal
Just
person,
in your office.
just hanging
Wow.
out. Nobody said hi to him. Nobody. I don't want to say nobody cared, but it was like whatever. This is wild. But we're all probably inside like, don't say
Oh
anything.
my
Don't make a
gosh.
fool of yeah. Don't make
Yeah,
a
yeah,
fool of
yeah.
yourself.
I do that a lot every day
Yeah.
when I see celebrities, so it's all good. I know the
But
feeling.
anyway,
But what do you think about John Malkovich? Like he previously had Cyrus the Virus in Con Air, and now he's coming into a cartoonish Russian KGB.
can I just
Uh,
say that I think Malkovich's accents are terrible. Like he actually does not do a good accent.
can I read
In
a little excerpt of
in
trivia about this
in
instance?
any movie, yes, you can.
All right, Matt Damon said in an interview that getting John Malkovich was a big deal for the film, so much so that on the first take, John Malkovich did a very cartoonish and over the top performance, at the end of which the whole crew applauded and praised for him and how brilliant it was. At which point Matt Damon looked uh, John Malkovich very confused, and John Malkovich, seeing him looking confused, leaned over and said, "I'm a terrible actor." Uh, I think it works, man. I think he, if he was just playing like a straight Russian kind of mobster, I don't know. I like the eccentric, cartoonish, give him his money, and eating
No,
the
I'm
Oreos.
saying it works, but I'm saying his accent in particular in all movies that is not his own is generally pretty bad, which I would liken to a Brad Pitt. But I even think Brad Pitt, his accents can be better. I mean, I very much enjoyed Meet Joe Black. His, I don't know, don't call it hilarious, but that's better. 7 years in Tibet, not so good. But nonetheless,
Do you like
Rounders.
Oreos?
It was a fun movie. I do like Oreos. I don't dip them in milk as you do often, but it was a fun movie. There were times I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. Um, to be fair, both movies I left thinking neither of these were as good as I thought. For whatever
You
it's
know,
worth.
I've seen Rounders quite a few times, and it was It was actually just featured a few months ago on the Rewatchables podcast, and they kind of hit it best. Like, is this movie a cinematic masterpiece? No, but is it rewatchable? And it's like, yeah, like I could turn this on. This is a movie I've shown to people and things like that. It's just it's like a sports movie where it's like the guy gets beaten down, he has to rise up through the ranks again, and then at the final play of the game, he comes out on top, and that's just uplifting.
Which is interesting. That was very uplifting. Like, god damn it. I mean, for both like movies, actually, for even Casino Royale, where he's getting beaten down, but Bond doesn't ever get beat down to submission. But yeah, he finally wins on the last hand. I was expecting, memory was not very good on both, of course, movies, because my memory movie is like dog shit. What did he win? 60 grand?
No, 40. Basically got his money back to pay everybody else and everything like that. So
And I was like, all of that anger from KGB for like 40,000? I was like,
it's a pride thing.
doesn't seem. I mean, maybe, but I was a little disappointed in the fact that it was only $40,000. But nonetheless, I guess like you have to go to
1998. Pretty
yeah.
good.
What's the money there?
Buy a house
48,000 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, fun movie. She probably should have left him, before then, but nonetheless. This week's episode is sponsored by Soul Roots Running Company, where you can find the best covers for your feet that make you travel comfortably and quickly across sidewalks like Shell Silverstein. Soul Roots offers all varieties of running shoes, clothes, and accessories. And for 10% off, please use the code SCENE, SCENE, at checkout. And any order over $180 is free to ship anywhere in the continental United States. Head over to shop.soulrootsracing.com and fill up your cart for 10% off with the code SCENE.
You want to get into Bond? James
I would
Bond?
love to. Bond, James Bond. Casino Royale, 144 minutes, a lot longer than I was expecting. Martin Campbell directed 2006, which I, funnily enough, when we started watching, I was watching with my wife. She asked, "Oh, what year is this from?" I was like, "I think 2011." And then I don't know why 5 years dramatically changed my perspective, but I was like, 2006?
There was no iPhones in this film.
Oh, was it? Yeah. But there were some Fords and Sony Vios. Clear as day. Clear. I don't want to get ahead of myself. PG-13 action, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, 150 on budget, 616 on the box office. Did pretty well, always does well. But I mean, the point of like telling the story is like almost irrelevant for any Bond flick. After receiving a license to kill, British Secret Service agent James Bond heads to Madagascar, where he uncovers a link to Mads Mikkelsen, Le Chefri. I don't know how to even say it, even though I heard it in the movie a ton of times. A man who finances terrorist organizations. And of course, Bond is there to prevent that from happening. And he is trying to raise money in a high-stakes poker game. MI6 sends Bond to play against him. Interesting from a governmental perspective. Gambling that their newest 00 operative will topple the man's organization. I read it back, and if you actually do read any synopsis from James Bond flicks, they're like hilariously bad. Like if like the synopsis itself, you're like, there's no way this is gonna work. But then if it's without having the context of like action, sex, drugs, rock and roll, like
locations.
That's what makes the movie. And I just have to say this, I this is probably my favorite or second favorite Bond flick, and I own all of them, and I've seen all of them multiples of times. But I don't think any are like cinematic masterpieces in any way, shape, or form, to be abundantly clear. But I love the fucking world that Ian Fleming has created with Bond. And I love them every single time. Like this is one of those movie series. If I saw it on in the background, I'm keeping it on. That would be my go-to James Bond. It's simple. You know exactly what you're getting into. And then once you get into this environment of Bond, I guess I'm going to be a sexist after this. Like, it's just a fun little world to be in where like kind of anything can happen. Like all your little boy dreams can come true. And I guess I have to ask the question, like, what was your first Bond that you saw?
Oh, the first Bond that I saw was Die Another Day with Pierce Brosnan in the
That's
theaters.
great.
Yeah, it was a fantastic introduction to James Bond. I will say, bad cinephile over here, but I've not seen any of the previous, like the Sean Connery James Bond. I haven't gone back to those, but I've
What?
seen every Daniel Craig James Bond. Yeah, I know,
You
I know.
haven't seen like Goldfinger?
No, never seen it. The silence is hurting me, man. I get where you're coming from, and I've
All
always
right. How
loved
about this? Soon after this, we are going to have a James Bond uh, walkabout. I don't even know what to call it.
mega episode.
Dear God. I mean, we could have even a short, truncated version of James Bond. Again, I love James Bond flicks. Love. Like so much so that the first, I can't remember, it was probably Goldfinger because I went to like the top list of like what's the best Bond. I watched Goldfinger and I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. And then I've seen every one of them since and bought them all. I just like the facts about them, like the guy running over alligators at an alligator farm. I can't remember who that was, and he had to do multiple takes. And there's like footage of everything of the 7 alligators that he had to run over. And like, what? How is this
Did you
real?
ever
First of
did
all,
you ever play the video game or any of the video games?
GoldenEye,
Yeah,
I did. I saw recently as well. There's a guy that recreated that song in a very well put out way. But I did. I played it. Have you played it recently?
I haven't played it recently. No.
So like I wasn't into first person shooters. I really got into it with Halo 2 and then or Halo 1, Halo 2 was kind of like the simultaneous mode for me, but I did love GoldenEye. On the N60. Yeah, it just lovely. But I've played it since, and while the music is still good, it's all controlled by one joystick. I don't know if you
Joystick,
remember
yeah.
that.
It's
Yeah, and
a little wonky.
it's really terrible. It's hard to play. So I tried to play against. Anyway, it was tough. But anyway, what I really need to say about the movie is beautiful stunt work. I think Daniel Craig was injured for most of the shots. He gained 20 pounds, put on a lot of muscle. A lot of people, were gawking at the one scene. For example, the scene of him getting out and his
Of the ocean.
scantily clad self. There was, I guess, most of the crew were on boats trying to prevent paparazzi from being in the shot. So they
Really?
had to
Wow.
rent boats. They had to rent boats to like get people to not be there.
This was his introduction to James Bond. Like everybody, I
Yeah,
think like when the casting of Daniel Craig, and he was like what in Layer Cake. He wasn't like that
great
big
movie.
name. Great movie, yeah. But like everybody, you know how people scoff when any kind of like casting news gets out, like um, Christian Bale's going to be Batman or whatever. But like when Daniel Craig was like announced as the next James Bond, people were like, "What? This blonde haired guy?" Like we just had Pierce Brosnan, this like you know dapper man in a suit. But this is good because like this is like the first Bond where he's like really a blunt instrument, and that's what he is.
First of all, I still love the Pierce Brosnan Bonds, but boy, the acting is like in the script, I should say, in particular, script is like it's pretty terrible, including Goldeneye and Die Another Day. But I love them for what they're worth. I really I do appreciate them. I'll watch them like nonstop. But Daniel Craig actually wasn't going to be Bond. He said no to the movie, as often a lot of Bonds when they're presented actually say
It's a
no.
commitment.
Yeah, so I mean, you yourself, you're going to be Bond in the future, but I think Daniel Craig has kind of surpassed that. But like, he didn't want to play. He thought, the whole campaign of Bond is like kind of over stagnant, and it was, to be fair, kind of stagnant. But he, reprised a new Bond that actually is more like the book, is more like the character. Um, for example, I mean the first martini he orders is identical to the actual book in Casino Royale. Like that's the
Oh,
same
really?
martini, yeah, to a
Didn't
T,
know that.
like exactly to a T. But anyway, I have to ask a few questions. Mads Mikkelsen, he's been on the podcast before. I wish he had been,
Yes.
but nonetheless, he needs to be more villainous and like I want to see him in like a long legs Nicolas Cage horror flick, basically, where he just like is a terrorizer of mass proportion. But
He's just got that look.
crying blood, pretty fucking gangsta. Pretty scary. Like if a bad guy is crying blood, like crying is like seen as effeminate or
Weak.
diminutive, weak, whatever you might say. But like, homie's crying blood. Why crying blood? Like, I'm. I don't even know what to think. I don't even know what to say. I'm scared immediately. How did you get that? I'm not a doctor. Like, you got these questions and you're like, whoa. And his eyes just messed up. You're like, okay, I got to take a step back.
Yeah,
You
why
win.
haven't you gotten this fixed or looked at? Like, there's got to be something. Go see an optometrist, man.
Maybe he's like constantly in WWE. He's just, I'm gonna beat you down. But I can't imagine looking at him across the way playing poker as well. But I will say this: could you imagine getting hit in the nuts as your punishment? And I guess the second question is like,
I
what would be
have
your
imagined.
worst? What is your worst form of torture? Do you think?
I mean, I wrote this note down as I think this was the most cinematic or the best torture scene put on film, because me
Wow.
as a
Yeah. Yeah.
viewer can empathize and relate to what is going on here. Because at first you see that they're just cutting the hole out of a chair, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Like this is interesting. Um, and yeah, man, like I can I imagine it? Yes, because like when I was watching it this morning, I like clinched up a little bit because it just doesn't seem like it would be very, 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 very enjoyable at all. But apparently, James Bond he can roll with the punches.
I would say this: I was very impressed by Daniel Craig in that moment of acting. Like, what a terrific uh mix. I love when there's a mixture of like you're trying to fuck with somebody, so he's hurting, getting hit in the nuts, so it's very harmful, but also like trying to mess with somebody's like mental fortitude and be like, yes, yes, yes. That effort in the mixture of the two, he fucking crushed. He read every single Ian Fleming book, Bond book, I should say, and before this, like studied incessantly the character. Even talked to like people in the government and really went into that role. I'm not saying that to say that like he understands torture, but like that scene was one of my favorite, if not my favorite. A
Yeah, it was
terrific
the highlight of
acting
the
job.
film. It was intense, but also funny, and you got a clear idea of what this James Bond is going to be like moving forward.
Yeah, and I have to say this. I don't. This goes for all movies, not just any Bond. I don't really understand when there's like romantic scenes, and I don't like romantic scenes of like people kissing, no matter who they are, even if they're like extremely attractive, unattractive. It doesn't bother. Like nothing changes. I just don't like. I don't know why I don't like kissing scenes.
Just get a
Something
room.
says something says yeah, something about me. But like one thing I really don't understand, because it doesn't replicate life in any way, shape, or form, at least according to me, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. But like when people get so close to each other and they're just talking like this, and that hot breath, which they probably feel on each other, baby, I just really wanted some waffles in bed. Oh, waffles in bed? And whatever the fuck they're going to be talking about, maple syrup is going to be delectable. And I could just smell and taste the powdered sugar. You like powdered sugar? Oh, I love powdered sugar with strawberries on top. Whatever they're talking about, I despise those moments because I'm like, bitch, get out of my face. Like, get your hot breath over here. Like, I just need to be alone for a second. Why are you all up in my grill? Give me some space. There's
And
personal
you know,
space. I don't even
and you know
care
the
if that
morning
person.
breath.
Yeah, I don't exactly. I don't care if I love you deeply. I've been married for over 10 years now, Steven. As you know, you went to the wedding. I don't want my wife to be that close to me. Like, do you have to whisper something? I can turn my face and you could say something into my ear, but I don't need you to be looking at me in the eyes unless you're trying to kill me. What's going on? How does this happen in every Bond flick does this, or every romantic movie? And I myself, and I'm going to ask you anecdotally, I've never done that in my life, ever in my life. Have you? Do you talk like this? Like the people like that you love have, you know, consensual sex with, assuming you do that sort of thing?
I don't kiss and
Yeah,
tell.
baby. When I was in Texas, we used to do this thing, and you're like, "Hi, how are you?
You're
Hot.
just not a
It's
romantic,
hot.
Jonathan. You know,
Oh,
you're not a romantic.
do you like humidifiers in your face while they just stare at you in the eyes?
I do. I do. Yeah, it's one of my simple
Name the
pleasures,
last
man.
time if you had like a Hinge profile and you're like, I like to be talked to really closely. Nobody is gonna link up with you. Is that what it's called? Linking up? I don't know. Nobody's gonna say, "Oh, I love movies like that. He's such a romantic." Sign me up, Steven.
I think it's a part of intimacy, man, and it's like especially like within the first few months of dating somebody and getting kind of like in their intimate space. Yeah, that might wear off over time and
No,
marriage.
they're having minutes of a conversation. If you were to come hug, I love you, break, good. Hi, how was your day, baby? Oh, was it? Would you like to talk about how the 401k now needs to be reallocated to something else and diversified? Would you actually? What are you talking about? That it's actually going to be necessary for you to be that close for
I mean, I don't do
minutes.
that for minutes of a
They're on
conversation, but I
top
think
of each other. So I think like if you're going to actually have that conversation and be that romantic, why don't you just start fucking? Just start having sex.
well, then we're getting into 007, the porno, and we're not watching that movie. Uh,
I'm just saying it's not realistic. I've never had it happen, and I don't think you have either, and I don't think anyone has, other than somebody in a porno trying to replicate exactly what's actually happening. And
Casino Royale, the poker movie. Poker, I hardly met her. That's what we're talking about here. No, I mean it's cinematic. It's basically what we're talking about is showing two people close together being in an intimate moment. And the way that you do that is you capture it by them being close. And then you have an intimacy coordinator that handles all of the things that happen between the two.
I love the fact that you said intimacy coordinator. I That'd be an interesting job.
It
Pornhub.
would be very interesting. Yeah, it's like, okay, we're gonna put some rubber spandex on you, like some tight ones, so nothing protrudes
And this
or
morning
protrudes.
we need you to take a little more Altoids than normal. Try to stop the smoking, Mr. Craig. And we know that you were a smoker before this. You know, you got to get a little close and personal for this role. As somebody who used to save down Google images from their homepage every single day, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard of a human being doing in my life. What is your thought process in the intros for the music of James Bond and the graphics of James Bond? You seem like the type that would be very interested in like the transition of movie over movie and like who's going to be involved. Is it Adele this year? Who's going to be next? Soundgarden possibly. Like, what is your interest level in the intros to these movies?
It's through the roof, man. It's something that like I love the time period, the time capsule of like what person they choose to play the music, how they do the introduction. It gives a whole feel of the era of when that film came out. And I don't know if they have those kind of same things in the '60s James Bond. Maybe they do, but now I want to check those out. It's great.
There's always an intro in a Bond flick, but I have to say this. I thought it hilarious because the Google images it's hilarious to me because at the time when you were doing it I was like, why are you doing this? And I guess I have
It's
to ask the question why, because I was just thinking like clearly you're going to be, this is the internet, you're going to be able to just find them somewhere eventually, all of
uh,
them. I was like, what are you doing with these?
if anybody wants to know what we're talking about, you know how like on a special day, Google will kind of switch up its logo, and for Martin Luther King Day in 2004 or whatever it might be, Arbor Day, and they would have like a cool like little Google themed of whatever day it is. I would make a screenshot and I'd save it in a folder because I thought maybe one day I'd have a collection of these that I could show somebody. I thought it was kind of cool, right? It's very nerdy of me. But lo and behold, you can actually go to Google and there's a separate website tab where you could search every single one of these things and available to anybody that wants it. So that was all for naught.
That's where I was going to. Like I thought it'd be all for naught. I guess you could use it as like pickup lines. Oh baby, you remember that old Google image from September 2nd, 1986, and Arbor Day? And they're like, no. Well, if you were to go back to that time, I'll tell you what, you were just like that bell to me. Like what? What is happening right now?
She's like, Google wasn't even
Bad
around in
jokes.
1986. What are you talking about?
I have to ask another question. Is there a requirement for Bond to run fast like the characters? Pierce Brosnan, I don't think ran too quickly, but nonetheless, like how fast do you think he is running at top speed, Bond?
He's pumping his arms. It's
I think he's going all out.
Yeah, it reminds me of this guy on social media that he kind of runs the exact same way as James Bond, but he'll like do different clips of him running in different types of shoes and flip flops and
Yeah.
high heels and things like
Yeah.
that. And it's basically the exact same style of James Bond running, full speed, 22 miles an hour.
That's fast. That's very fast. I have to say, a factoid. Did you know this is you don't know this because you don't watch any Bond films. It's the first Bond flick in 44 years that had rain.
Right? Oh, I had the sprinklers that went off in the airport.
No, there was rain, like the upward shot. Terrible rain. Terrible.
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 I thought the sprinklers in the airport was pretty good, but we all knew that was just fake rain.
Daniel Craig lost
Um,
two front teeth. So at that Christmas next, he was wishing old Santa.
I was going to go with that one. I'm glad you did. Uh, this was also 2006, and it was
He had
like
a
the
dentist fly
culmination.
over immediately to fill in the two front teeth.
That's crazy.
I wonder if there's like a colorization, like in the midst of
It's
filming, like you
Hollywood.
can actually. That's.
They got good dentistry.
Do you know there's no
But this was
CGI
also
in this film
none.
except to remove some of the cables that actually were attached.
I didn't know that. I love
Yeah.
practical effects.
I don't know
But
how
this
they
is
did
also the rise.
building going into the water. Now that I think about it,
Yeah, that might have been
seems like CGI. Must have had a bad fact here.
what I was going with, and I appreciated a lot was this opening scene, and it was basically like the peak of parkour that was going on in the world at the time. And they got like one of the first free runners, that actor that was running through it. He's like a big star in the free runner parkour world.
Oh wow!
And I was going to ask you a question. Have you ever tried parkour?
We've had this exact discussion in the past
Well, it's coming up
on
again.
on a on a podcast where I referenced that big man doing parkour. Yeah, I was never a parkour guy. I did know wasn't JP a parkour guy? He got pretty like just tried it out, and I was like, of course JP is gonna like parkour. This is the dumbest thing ever. No, I never liked parkour. To be fair, it's like one of those things that like if you're really good at it, you're like, that's fucking awesome. But how do you get there? Like you have to be like this big old dork for a long period of time, and then you're like really cool. But I think if you're like extremely athletic and doing parkour very seriously, it's awesome. Like what people can actually do, like jumping on the light post. But no, I never got into it. I was just like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, I'm more of the like timid parkour aficionado. Like I'll
Walking
go up to
upstairs,
walking upstairs. I'll go to a ledge, kind of look over and say, nope, not for me. But I'll get close.
you'll think about it,
I'll think about it.
and then you'll get
That's all
scared.
that counts.
So, going back to Bond, if you were Bond, a heartthrob, people. First of all, I thought you were not wearing a shirt when we started this podcast, and it was just your chain. And I was like, I guess you're going into like Bond
Yeah, you
mode.
would have
I
seen
don't
the
know.
chest hair.
What would be your secret weapon?
So this Bond didn't have the gadget guy Q. I think he comes in the next one, Quantum of Solace. But good Bond gadget, I would say. I don't know. I like the Aston Martin that can like flip up and shoot guns. You know,
Do you like Ford?
that's always Ford.
Yeah. Do you like the car? You know what Ford produces? Because he
No, I like
James Bond is now in a Ford
what? That sounds ridiculous.
in this
That's an
movie.
American make.
He's
It's an
driving
American.
around in a Ford.
What kind of Ford? Ford Fusion?
I don't know. I don't know Fords. Did you not notice that
Oh,
either?
I didn't notice the.
Ford paid to have the Ford in this Bond.
That's that. I mean, they must have paid a lot of money because that's ridiculous.
A
Like,
lot of money. They had
yeah. I mean,
commercials for it when this movie came out.
that's so silly. That's so silly.
Legitimately makes me remove a monocle from the rating of this movie because there's literally a Ford that Ford paid for to have this movie made or to have the product placement. I don't know if Sony Vaio or Sony actually paid, but when he's hanging out on the boat, he's using a anyway. The Ford is like he's not a Ford guy. He's British. Like what are we talking about here? Driving around in a Ford and a Ford that
I'd
like
rather him drive around in a Mini Cooper. Like that's just.
yeah,
I mean,
I mean that's
even
more
better.
reasonable. A Vespa, any of that could be applicable. Aston Martin, whatever,
Hmm.
Maserati, what it doesn't even matter honestly. But a
European. It's got to be
Ford,
European.
but it doesn't have to be. Uh, maybe, but a Ford, like what? I mean, maybe like the 1969 like 68 Shelby or something.
But
I could see
still,
that.
that's like
But like
that's
it was like a
American.
it was like a Ford Fusion or something. I don't know. I don't even know what Ford's. What I'm talking about. Anyway, monocle off. Do you like vodka martinis or are you a Jen Martini guy?
I'm definitely a gin martini guy. I
Me
like
too.
the bouquet of the juniper berries and such. Splash of olive juice. I like it dusty, not dirty. Blue cheese olive all the way. Sometimes I'll do a Gibson and put an onion in there. But yeah,
No, no blue cheese. I love blue cheese though, but not in my martini. I'm not. Yeah, not a vodka martini guy. Not. Yeah, I like the juniper, the taste. I would say Hendrix or Botanist would be my go to. Hendrix is terrific. The first time I ever realized what Botanist was, I was in flying out of not LGA, flying out of London, Gatwick, and my friend Annie and myself, who we were already drunk in the morning, and a guy was at the airport saying that the only place that you can get the Botanist gin is here. And I was like, well, we had a shot, and we're like, well, we better get 2 bottles immediately. And then we the first bar we went to back in the States has the Botanist gin. And we're like, damn it, we've
what do
been
they mean in
duped.
that framing of here, like in this
I don't
airport?
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. The only way you can get that there, we don't have this in any bars, but here's where it's at. Great gin though, I have to say. But every bar had it in New York after, or had it even in existence. But I am not a fan of vodka martinis, but gin martinis are absolutely delectable. But anyway, my secret weapon would probably be just to miniaturize somebody. It seems like that would then
That's an
become
Austin Powers kind of
that would
gadget.
become Men in Black then, or some other movie.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
But
Um,
anyway, big fan of Bond. I would love to go into more Bond flicks. They're just fun. Not a whole lot to discuss, but just fun. Put you in a good
yeah,
mood.
and this apparently the first Casino Royale. It wasn't the central thing. Wasn't about poker. It was about baccarat. Nobody plays baccarat anymore, so it was a
The
wise
Chinese
choice.
do for sure
Oh yeah,
in mass proportion. If you've ever gone to a casino and gone to those tables, it's just all Chinese people,
I've
and
never played
they're
baccarat, so I don't even know how to
they're
how to do it.
so they're so fun to sit like the most fun you're ever gonna have. Basically, taking just impeccable notes of like, oh, we're gonna get this, the next one. It's so fun, a lot of fun. But anyway, ratings, rounders. By the way, this is like really tough for me.
It's tough for
Um,
me too because I know the vibe check of what I get from these movies, and I also know like the cinematic merits of what they kind of are about. And I'm just kind of gonna go with a little bit of a mix of both, if you will.
Okay.
So Rounders for me, quintessential, like I would say, hangout movie. Um, Great to put on, love it. Great acting, great performances. I love hanging out with it. Is it a masterpiece? No. Does it have great memorable moments? Sure, yeah, it does. But I can't give it anything higher than a 3.5 glasses.
It's so funny because I like how you're starting to frame things. Is it good? No, it's great. Like you're answering your own questions during the ratings. I had it at 3. I think it's to me I just was like laughing at like sometimes how bad it was, but I think Damon and Norton really brought it up, and just the Malkovich impression. I don't know. I if you can't give it higher than 3.5, you might as well give it a 3 and come with me on the dark side.
I'll go down to 3 with you there. I
Yeah,
think it's one of those, kind of dirty, grimy late 90s movies that, just it'll stick with you.
it was enjoyable. It's not a cinematic masterpiece from any stretch of the imagination. But Casino Royale, I also, again, I don't think I'll ever. There's yet to be made Bond films that could probably prove me wrong here, but I'm never going to rate a Bond flick like super duper high. This one in particular, maybe probably the highest, maybe a number 2, objectively and subjectively. Do I agree with Rotten Tomatoes on this? Absolutely not. Um, there's just too many times of like cheese factory coming out to take it seriously, but you shouldn't take Bond seriously unless you're a character and the villain of the movie itself. But yeah, I gave it a 3.5. I think it is actually better than Rounders, but with that being said, it's I think to get to a 4 glasses movie, I don't feel it, nor do I feel like it's objectively there.
Yeah,
Again,
so
94% on Rotten Tomatoes is it's this would be one of those movies I would put as like something you vehemently disagree with in regards to like
the critics.
critics, like everything. Everyone is collectively like in the favor, and maybe it was because like kind of James Bond objectively, and the critics said the last few movies sucked, and
I think that's what it
he
was. Like
reprised the role of Bond to be better, and it's much better, but it doesn't make the movie like a 5 glasses movie. This just never does. Like dude's getting hit in the nuts. Like what are we talking about
it's
here?
funny. Yeah, it was funny when you were breaking this movie down at the very start, and you said the first time you said 94%. I saw a little tick that you you didn't agree with it.
Yeah,
Um,
I gave that there to show you. This, really?
yeah, it was a
Mm,
good tell. It was a good tell. But yeah, I think this movie, it's funny because it's so long, but there's instances where it feels rushed, like the romantic scene or the romantic relationship between the two, and how they're falling in love, and how he's about to just quit MI6, even though he just got promoted to double O. So it's a long movie, but it feels rushed in some instances. The set pieces are great. The action is fantastic. It's a beautifully shot film. Again, like I haven't seen all the James Bond movies, but I will say that, yeah, this is one of my favorites to watch. Um, but I'm kind of right with you. I was going to lean more towards 4, but I'll join you at 3.5 because I think that's kind of where it's at.
yeah, yeah. It's. I was thinking about 4, and I was like, no, but it is legitimately one of the best Bonds that there is. But again, I love Bond, and I love Bond films. But with that said, Bond just he's his own little environment. I think he has his own rules, and I think it's just never going to be high probably on the list of like it's like Austin Powers, but like Austin Powers would be even less. Like you have a character that's like the superhero, and it's a cheese
It's
factory, and you love to
it's
watch
Ethan
it, but it's
Hunt.
like it's not. Yeah. But whew, that's pretty serious though. Like I think I don't know. Like I think
Mission
Mission
Impossible.
Impossible. I think Mission Impossible can probably MI1 is a 4 glasses movie if I were to quantify it. I think it's better because the theme song is just it's ripping.
The theme song is good,
It's
and Brian
ripping.
De Palma just crushes in
I think
the filming of
honestly,
it.
the first one that would be better than this objectively. And then Jason Bourne, I guess you could throw in as well, but like those also objectively are like riveting because they're more true to reality, if that makes sense.
I get you. Do you think they've had some like notions that they might cast a female James Bond? Do you think that would work?
I just don't know. I mean, they've done the Ghostbusters, it didn't do well. I can't see this character as
I think they should just create a new character and not like not base it
Jane
on James
Bond.
Bond. Jane Bond. Like just do something different, but have like a badass woman and see how it does, you know? But yeah, that's
Yeah,
just me.
as I've already said before many times in this podcast, I'm kind of tired of like remakes. I mean, I said it last time. I'm tired of remakes. So I using the same character and just changing the fact that it's going to be a woman versus a man. Yeah, like why? Like just leave it as is. Create a new like whole story. Just don't rehash the same. Like get creative. Get somebody to create a new role. But anyway, fun times. Great
Yeah, what do we
oldies.
got next week?
Is it the motel
I think we're doing
episode?
motels. Yeah.
We are doing best motel movies, which I have already started, and I'm about a quarter way through Psycho.
It,
And
big hitter right there.
you are basically, we can get into it in the podcast next, but you've chosen Memento, which is the near and dear. I don't even know what's behind me. Near
Right
and
there, yeah.
dear to both of our hearts. I don't know how this is going to go, other than everyone just getting a new car. But motel movies are actually tough. If you Google best motel movies, it's not just Psycho and it's not just Memento, and we'll talk about it on the next podcast. But congratulations to us for making it one full year, by the way. This is episode 52, in addition to the fact that we've had 2 golden glasses, and we've made it a full year. And technically speaking, I believe that as of tomorrow, we will have made it a full year in terms of releasing of the first podcast recording of this. So there's a little bit of an overlap, but we said we would give each other a year. And then you said something about a tattoo at a year. So where does that stand still?
Okay. Yeah. If you can find a local tattoo artist here in LA, that's good and legit. I'll
Oscar
get something going.
Akermo will be the guy if you want a black and white.
Yeah, it's
patch
going to
in
be black and
your
white.
skin. Then Oscar Akermo.
All right. We will see how that goes. Maybe
He's the best.
Put in the comments where it should go. Let's if you got this far in the episode, we'll see.
Till next time.